everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we're going to talk about Rocky 4 and following its recent 40-year anniversary date of the movie's original release of November the 27th, 1985. I thought it would be appropriate to reflect on the original film itself and why it still remains one of the most culturally impactful movies, certainly of the 1980s. Now, the Rocky franchise itself is so iconic that it seems everybody within all of movie fandom and entertainment, and even outside of that genre, the general audience has seen Rocky 4 or at least knows of its existence. And following the film when it came back out in November the 27th, 1985, the franchise, like Sylvester Stallone, was already at a high point within the cultural zeitgeist. And him reprising his role once more alongside Talia, Shire, Carl Weathers and Burt Young, all returning once more with our fan favourite characters such as Adrian, Paulie and of course Apollo Creed. Now Rocky 4 would freshen the mix even further by introducing us to Dolph Lundgren as Ivan Drago, and also the very stunning Brigitte Nielsen as his wife, who was also initially the wife of Sylvester Stallone at the time of filming. Now, as we all know by now, Rocky 4 centred with Rocky Balboa himself being at the very top of the boxing world, having retained his World Championship title from Clubber Lang in the third instalment, this time taking on the almost indestructible force of the Soviet fighter Ivan Drago. And sadly, this fight is very much a cause for vengeance, as we see earlier on with the movie when Drago brutally beat Apollo Creed to death inside the ring, and Rocky himself, now filled with lots of guilt and remorse, goes away to Russia to train to gain his ultimate revenge against Drago, and what will ultimately be the most dangerous fight of his life. And as I mentioned already, Rocky 4 will forever remain, personally for me, one of the most transcendent films of the 1980s. And as a youngster growing up within that decade, it certainly was the most epic of the Rocky films, and Rocky Balboa himself has, without question, been at the forefront as one of the most standout heroes within all of cinema. Now, of course, from a critique point of view, many will point various flaws about the film in terms of the overuse of the soundtrack songs and training montages, the comic strip violence, and the obvious Cold War overtones between the US and Russian relations. Many still look to the film today as being almost more of a pop music video as opposed to an actual cinematic story. But for me, all of these elements are what makes Rocky 4 so special in the first place. And when you actually look at the movie itself, there is far more depth to the overall story and themes than what many give it credit for. And in terms of those themes, we have such matter as friendship and brotherhood. Rocky, of course, supporting Apollo within his returning fight. Their relationship has been developed far within the franchise, from the first film all the way to the third, and even defined even more so when we see the great scene between them near the beginning of the film, as they're looking at their previous fights from Rocky 2, and this is where Rocky essentially tries to talk Apollo out of fighting Drago, and Apollo emphasizes that they are both very much the warriors. And here we have a great discussion and debate whether you should change or stay true to your overall nature. And I think it's a great scene, brilliantly acted by the sadly late departed Carl Weathers. And this makes the film so relatable overall, because how many of us have been in the same scenario where we see our best friend looking to do something that we feel they shouldn't do, but we still back them anyway. And then of course we later on see the sense of regret and remorse through Rocky as he stands in the ring watching Apollo getting battered to death. And this ties to the other relatable theme of what would you do if you saw your best friend getting beaten and you felt responsible? Would you look to move past it, or would you indeed spend your time wallowing away in regret? Or would you look to gain some sort of revenge and sense of justice? And all of these moments make us empathise even more so with Rocky as a character than what we already did before in the previous films. And I think that overall sense of vengeance is just about enough to give Rocky that sound motivation to make us understand why he wants indeed to go into the ring against Drago, despite various protestations from both the media and also his wife. We have another fantastic scene where we see Adrian trying to convince Rocky not to go, telling him that it's suicide. This is another sign of how Adrian has grown as a character throughout the entire franchise, from the very shy, introverted personality that we saw in the first film to very much now a woman of stature and passion, and stands with conviction at the same time. And going back to that concept of not changing who we are and the fact that we are a fighter and we are a warrior, This is where the film very much taps into the whole ideal of a sportsman or an athlete, having to attain absolute peak condition and facing their ultimate challenge. And any sports fan who has followed a specific team or a specific athlete can relate to this as well, because they see that athlete or sportsman in the beginning of their career when they're much more of a raw talent, and then over the course of their career you see them evolve into their ultimate phase. And this is again what makes Rocky 4 so relatable. Supported very much by Sylvester Stallone's unrelenting commitment to his own physical condition, Rocky 4 is the ultimate evolution of the character when we look and reflect on his arc from the first film, where we see him transform into that super lean, ripped physical state. And that really makes sense in terms of the overall realm of boxing, when you've seen multiple fighters at the start of their careers and when they reach their top level. You often see their physique transform, and this is again what we see Rocky in terms of this story. Now, once more, the film faced criticism for presenting Rocky as far more of a muscle man, which took away a lot of his vulnerability that we saw certainly within the first couple of films. But when we look at it, this transformation makes absolute sense, because there's no way that Rocky could have contended with Drago in his form from both Rocky 1 or Rocky 2. And of course, in terms of impact, we have to focus about Ivan Drago, who I've commented many times within this channel, simply stands as one of the most iconic villains of the 1980s. At the time of its release, we all wondered how exactly they were going to top the vicious Mr. T as Clubber Lang from the third film, but by bringing in unknown Swedish actor Dolph Lundgren with his full 6'5" frame and his booming, almost robotic-like voice, they clearly found an antagonist to supersede what we had seen before. And in terms of a concept, we are presented here with a human cyborg. In the beginning scenes, we see Drago testing the true punching power on the punch pads, and we see the power levels going up with each punch that he throws. And this is a great job at the movie establishing straight away how imposing and powerful this opponent truly is. And I truly believe that if you ever want to keep a long running franchise going, you have to keep it fresh by introducing more powerful and different antagonists for the hero to take on. By having a much more powerful villain, you therefore create a much more interesting story. And this is exactly what we see here with Ivan Drago. We then have to mention, of course, one of the biggest features of the film, and that is the incredible training montages, which really emphasize something about Rocky 4 that I don't think is given enough credit, and that is the editing, which is a true masterclass in all of the sequences involving the quick cut and the slow motion shots, all of the angled viewpoints and choreography. All of this is a great fusion on such an expertise level in terms of editing and sound mixing. And of course, when you watch all of these sequences, it absolutely makes you want to go to the gym and start training. How many of us from that generation grew up watching Rocky 4, trying to mimic all of the techniques and exercises that Rocky performs on the speedballs, including the dragonfly sit-ups, chopping all the trees, all of the upside down sit-ups, and the intense running sequences. We get the fantastic juxtaposition of Rocky training raw in the outdoors, trying to run amidst deep snow, and that's contrasted with the more cybernetics, high-tech exercise, technological training of Ivan Drago on the treadmills and the bench presses and all of the abdominal simulators. So there's a real skill and precision in all of these montages and scenes, and it really shouldn't be underestimated enough the sheer euphoric and adrenaline rush that the film pushes, particularly when we come to the later stages. And continuing on that vein, we of course mention Vince DiCola's iconic musical soundtrack, very much transcendent and connecting to you much more on an emotional level as we look at the songs overall. And of course, the movie opens itself with the iconic Eye of the Tiger by Survivor from Rocky 3. We then go to the ultra catchy and infectious Living in America by James Brown from Apollo's Ring entrance. We have the incredible and simply undeniable No Easy Way Out by Robert Tipper, as we see Rocky driving through and reflecting on Apollo's loss and the previous memories. We have Survivor once more with the fantastic Burning Hearts playing as Rocky arrives in Russia. And then we have what I feel is one of the most underrated entries in this soundtrack, and that is the first training montage. And this is where we see the first bits of training from Rocky. I love synthesized sounds, which is much more of a mellow, sophisticated song. And then we build to the absolute euphoric and the incredible Hearts on Fire by John Cavity, which could possibly be the most euphoric song within all of the Rocky franchise. You simply can't deny it. It's so infectious, and again, motivates you wanting to go to the gym. Typified none more so than when Rocky runs all the way up to the mountain Drago. It really doesn't get any more iconic and transcendent than that. And of course, we close on the final epic encounter between Rocky and Drago in Russia, built up firstly with the amazing ring walk and entrance from Ivan Drago, a fantastic way to build up the sense of dread and the imposing nature of the villain. And before moving to the fight itself, an intense, stylized, high-octane comic strip choreography sequence, so full of spectacle and drama and action, and it's every bit as watchable now back then as what it is today. And people comment about the supposed lack of realism and the fact that Rocky gets knocked down multiple times, and in a realistic fight, this would have been stopped probably after the first round. But that's the point of the Rocky films, is that it's not meant to be realism, it's much more of an exaggerated hyper-realism, and this is very much a fantasy presenting two gladiators in the ring. That's almost the whole purpose of Rocky 4, where you're really pushing more the dramatic overtones and heartstrings and emotions and excitement. And again, we are simply looking at one of the greatest fight sequences within all of cinema. And then we focus on the release itself of the film, and on a near $30 million budget, it managed to gross over $300 million worldwide, becoming the third highest grossing movie of 1985, behind both Back to the Future and also Rambo First Blood Part 2. And this is when Sylvester Stallone was really at his career peak commercially, and the two box office successes really announced him as possibly the biggest movie star of the decade at this point, very much forging his path to becoming one of the most iconic action superstars, certainly of the 20th century. And alongside Rambo, the legacy left behind Rocky IV still resonates much today. We did have, within the recent years, the director's cut that Sylvester Stallone put together whilst we were all in lockdown, but sadly that was a version that I think took away very much of the special parts of the original version. Sylvester Stallone trying to go for a much more grounded take, but he took away again what made the film so special in the first place. And Rocky IV still remains for me an iconic classic, very much integral for me growing up in the 1980s and a whole generation of viewers growing up, and that's why I still believe is every bit as integral and important and inspirational 40 years plus after its overall release. So there's the overall thoughts and reflections on Rocky IV within its 40th anniversary of release. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you have any other further movies, television series, or any other topics within the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover within the channel, then also let me know within the comments, and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.